Okay, if you would kindly click the little blue got it, and if you choose not to be here during the recording, you'll have to leave the meeting. But there we go. All right, everybody. So welcome to Life as an OT. And we've got some really great speakers here today for you. Let's see. Come on now. Aha. First of all, let me inform you, this is how to contact us. If you have never gotten in touch with Indy Bridge or seen our website or emailed us for information on anything about what the OT Association is doing, these are our contact numbers. indybridge.org is our website, and info@indybridge.org is our email address. Okay. We are also on Facebook as Indy Bridge, and you can ask any OTA member here for an invitation. Just go ahead and pop your name into the chat if you would like an invitation to Indy Bridge. It is a private, non-viewable by public, uptone, pro LRH, pro tech, safe social chat area. You can find a good auditor here. You can ask for advice. You can just have just a good social time sharing ideas about tech on this website. All right. Okay, we're the OT Association. We put on these Indy Bridge events, and we are just thrilled to bits to be able to do this. Today's panelists are also the OT Association. We have Trey Lotz, who's OT 8, Class 9, and an ELS auditor. Randy Smith, who's OT 7, Class 9, and also an auditor and CS. Z Snyder, OT 8, Class 5 grad and auditor. And Jerry Tunadal, who's OT 8, Class 9, and also an auditor. I'm not sure if he's shown up yet, but he'll probably show up in a minute. Okay, Ingrid Hoffman is also here. She is OT 8 and a Dianetics auditor. Greg Cohen, OT 8 and Class 2. And then there's me. I'm the chair of the OTA, which means I herd cats all day long and keep things organized. I'm also your MC today. My name is Mary Blackford. I am OT 6, currently on solo knots, and a Class 1 auditor. Here we go. We also have a special guest today, Tom Martiniano. He is known to us on the Indy Bridge Facebook page. He was on staff in Detroit from 1971 to 76. He was in the Sea Org from 1977 to 1997. He worked all over the world, including New Zealand, Los Angeles, quite experienced guy. He's a Class 9 auditor. And he has some other qualities. I'm just going to read them here because I couldn't fit them onto one slide. He was senior management in the Sea Org, and when he left, he left the Sea Org in 1997. Yep, said that. He is old OT 7 and currently on solo knots. He is a Class 9 auditor, a professional supervisor, professional word clearer, RTC interned, data series evaluator, a flag trained intern cramming officer, and LRH's biggest fan. Now, I know a lot of that is misunderstood for you. You don't know what those are, but trust me, this guy is really trained, and we're really pleased to have him on board. So thanks for showing up, Tom, today, and we're really happy to have you here. Okay, in this presentation, I due to space considerations, it was really hard for me to put sources on each and every slide. I did my best, but just know that any scales and quotes from LRH in this presentation are from either Scientology 08, the Book of Basics, or the Technical Dictionary of Dianetics and Scientology, unless otherwise noted. We have a couple of tapes that we mentioned in here too. So let's get this rolling. Okay. Let's see. Scientology 08, Book of Basics. You can have your free copy if you click on the PDF link in chat, and IT will have that on chat for us or in chat for us before the meetings end today. But that's the original cover. It's very green if you take that paper cover off. So this is prettier. All right. One of my favorite quotes is by Trey Lotz, who's going to be our main speaker today regarding OT, what it means to be an OT and life as an OT. His quote is, "We are all somewhere on the OT scale." I mean, that's our starting point, being a Thetan. And I'm going to let Trey talk about being OT right now. I think I have a definition here, Trey, sorry. What is a full OT? The definition of a full OT is operating Thetan, a being who can be at cause knowingly and at will over thought, life, form, matter, energy, space, and time, subjective and objective. Additional definitions of OT that we might refer to today are a clear who has been refamiliarized with his capabilities. The state of being is attained by drills and familiarity after the state of clear has been obtained. A real OT has no reactive bank, is cause over matter, energy, space, time, and thought, and is completely free. Trey, would you like to start with the pan-determinism scale or the responsibility scale?
Well, yeah, the pan-determinism scale.
Okay, go ahead.
Good. Okay. Well, yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about OT. It has to be understood as a gradient of regained abilities because operating Thetan means you're a Thetan and you're operating. So actually, there isn't anybody that's not a Thetan. So we got that part of it down already. But then it comes to operating and operating, the operating ability is established by a person's different, their knowledge and also their skills. There's certain things that you become aware of. The more cases removed, you become more aware of certain things or more aware that you can do certain things or, be aware of certain things. And these occur on a gradient. It doesn't hit you all at once. I remember a guy who went exterior with full perception, and he popped out of his body. There was an overhead plane, and he ended up in the kitchen of the plane. And his comment was, "Well, I'm not a professional OT yet." So it's it's important to grant yourself beingness for where you are and what you can do, and acknowledge that. Because one of the things that LRA says is that orders of magnitude can be used to invalidate anything, make nothing of anything. So if you think of OT as some vast unattainable state, then it kind of makes nothing of what you can do, and that's a form of invalidation, which you want to definitely stay away from because that works against your ability to continue to make progress. People say, well, what does it matter what I do today? Because, a million years from now, nobody will, it won't make any difference. Or, I'm one person in a universe with trillions of stars. What difference does it make? So that's using the orders of magnitude to make nothing of what is, what is present. So anyway, that's I always like these scales, the pan-determinism scale and the responsibility scale, because they're parallel scales. The pan-determinism scale, as you can see, it's a willingness to start, change, stop in any and all dynamics. A being, a Thetan, is always cause before their effect. And that's an important stable datum because you can't be cause when you're at an effect. So if you're at an effect point, you have to travel up the awareness to whatever the cause point was. another way of putting this is, what's the real why? The real why is a cause point. And how do you know whether you've got a cause point? Well, you've got a cause point because then you can do something about the effect point. If you're the effect point, you can't do anything about it because you're the effect. It's a pretty simple idea, but actually all of auditing is based on that idea. You get to the source of something and then you're able to relieve any effects from it. Anyway, the interesting thing about pan-determinism is you can see both sides of a situation, your exterior from both poles of a problem or a game. And in life, a referee would be a good example of a person who's supposed to be pan-determined, because he's not going to take sides between the teams, but he just imposes the rules of the team. A judge, same thing. They're supposed to be pan-determined. They don't take sides in a trial. They just make sure the proceedings follow the law. So that's sort of a real life example of pan-determinism. And the bottom point there is, it says, would not necessarily fight or choose sides. So this is the position of pan-determinism, is exterior to a game. Now you might want to play the game. You know, the referee might want to actually be a football player and take off his uniform and put on a football uniform and join a team. But then he's gone from pan-determinism to a willingness to fight things and choose sides. Now, this word willingness in that sentence there is very important, because if you're going to work your way up the scale, you're going to find that an unwillingness to fight made you an effect point, that you were always going to be intimidated by the threat of a fight. On the tone scale, it's the same thing. You know, LRH talks about pain is the make-break point on the tone scale, because if you can tolerate pain, nobody likes it, but if you can tolerate it, then pain can't run you around by the nose. If you cannot experience pain, then you're going to always be the effect of anything that might cause pain. So this willingness idea is very important, because very often, if you're willing to fight a battle, you don't have to fight a battle. It's only when you kind of are afraid and pull away that gives the signal to the aggressive side to go ahead and attack, because they know you're not going to fight back. So I think that's a really important point. Now, once a person enters into a game, there's things that happen. This is the must and must not happen again. That's not the right. Well, the idea of must and must not happen is that things happen in a game that you don't want to experience. So the two rules for happy living go out the window. Now, pan-determinism is also two rules for happy living, but we can get into that later. But the idea that something has to happen or something can't happen puts you into that band of must and must not happen again. It's an unwillingness to experience. So that is just a further escalation of the idea of must have and can't have. Now, must have and can't have are always based on scarcity, which means that you may win, you may lose. And the problem with that is it's sort of a defense mechanism, it's an assertion that doesn't really work as an assertion. If you must win, this actually triggers the can't win part of it. And if you can't win, you end up having it happen anyway, simply because of reverse vectors. So what happens is then you become unwilling to associate and repair. Where you have some willingness to associate and repair, but no willingness to let certain things happen again. So you become adamant about this can't happen or this has to happen. And what that does is it puts you into a limited ability to, or actually a limited willingness to associate with the other players in the game, or repair the relationship, or repair the game itself. You see this in a marriage when people after a fight, they said, well, you know, they always fight about money. So the solution to that is like, well, we're just going to never talk about money again. And so we'll associate and repair in other areas, but not on that area. And the problem with taking that strategy in a game is that it limits your space and it limits your reach. So that deteriorates into a willingness to repair somewhat, where, you know, you're grudgingly willing to possibly repair something, or at least try to, and that fails sometimes, and that leads to simply a willingness to associate somewhat, but an unwillingness to repair anything, unwillingness to associate with anything. So that's where you get people living in the same house that never talk to each other. That's they're associating, but they're not repairing, or they're not repairing or really interacting with each other. So anyway, that's how pan-determinism deteriorates into association. On the other responsibility scale, you can see the same downward trajectory. And what's interesting about this scale, of course, as I said, you're always cause before you're an effect. But that is that's like once you get senior to games, you're a cause, because you're not choosing to be the effect of anything. Now, what's interesting about this scale is that at the top of the scale is no previous or current contact. And that equates to no responsibility or liability. It is true that you're responsible for everything, ultimately, more as an eighth dynamic than as a seventh dynamic, because as a seventh dynamic, you've already chosen randomity. You've already chosen to not control certain elements of games. And so you're not really in full responsibility for both sides of the game. You've chosen a determinism other than yourself. And in this context, that's what other determinism means. It doesn't mean somebody else is controlling you. It means you have chosen to take yourself out of a position of responsibility for some aspect of the game. This is what makes a game possible. Otherwise, there's no game possible. If you know everything and you can control everything, it's really no game. Like like in a football game, you can control the football, but sometimes you lose it and the other side controlling the football. But so when you choose an other determinism in a game, then you're reduced to self-determinism, which is you're fully responsible for yourself, but you take no control or the ability to interact in certain ways with the other side of the game. So yeah, you're on the playing field with the other side, but your ARC is very low, and it's in the band of conflict, or somewhere in the hostility band. When identities, the definition of valence is an identity taken on after the loss of confidence in self. So actually what happens when you're in self-determinism only, then as LRH says in another definition, you're basically in conflict with all the other dynamics. If you're being an individual only, then you're not taking any responsibility for all the other dynamics, and they all become more or less opponents in the game. And that is a failing strategy in life. So that reduces you down to a valence. You've taken on an identity as a substitute for self in order to still be there, but really you're associating only or your valence is associating in the game and you have no responsibility for the game, for either side of the game or for a former self. So that's when people say to hell with it, I'm not going to play this game anymore. And they sort of go right out the bottom and then seek a new game to play where they have no previous responsibility or liability, but then they decide to play a game and they first look at both sides of the game, and then they decide to be one side rather than the other, and so on. And that goes on and on and on. That's gone on. LRA says 23,000 times at least on the time track. And each one of these long sequences of back and forth and one side, the other side, failure, valence ends up all collapsing into a big mass, and that's called a GPM. So that's what a GPM is. Anyway, those are my comments.
Okay, hi. Thanks, Trey. That's awesome. I've never heard the GPN explained quite like that. And I'm like, oh, that's very cool. IT is unmuting members of the panel, and I was wondering if you had any comments or examples of being on or discovering about the pan-determinism or responsibility scale, and maybe how you kind of came up that scale rather than choosing to, fall down it. Anybody?
Yeah, I can say something, Mary. Hi, everyone. Well, welcome to the event. I'm Z. I am OT8, and I'm a Class 5 graduate auditor. I've audited quite a bit by now. And I attested OT8 in 2008. Now, you can talk about if the bridge is complete or not complete, especially in the Indy field, there's different perspectives. But for me, there was definitely a change of awareness. The more I went up the bridge, the more my awareness became wider and wider. I was able to see certain things that I wasn't able to perceive before a certain level. And I feel also that there is a fluidity connected with OT, especially in relation to scales. You're able to go up and down by decision easier. You're not particularly stuck in one area. And especially with the responsibility scale, but also the pan-determinism scale, I feel I was taking notes when Trey was talking, and it's interesting that he brought up the second dynamic, because like, especially in the second dynamic, there could be, with your spouse or with your children, there could be disagreements, there could be, fights or aspects that you're not happy about. And I noticed that in the past, I was going into that game and becoming stuck in it for a long time. Whereas now I can just, much easier see the perspective of my partner, about my children, and pop out of that game and go up on the pan-determinism scale so much easier. And that's one of the biggest wins for me as an OT, that I am able to kind of fluidly be going up and down on these scales. And there's so many scales. I could talk about it all day, but just this one scale, because we were just talking about it. So that's an example from my own life that I've noticed as an OT.
Yeah, good. It's very important to understand that when you see it, when you really work with a scale like that, it's like engineering and reverse engineering. In order to answer the question of how do you get out of a situation, you have to answer the question of how did you get into it. So once you understand the sequence of deterioration of getting into a condition or a situation, then you can spot where you are, you can see what's the next level above that, and then you can do something about it. And that gradually pulls you out of whatever situation you're in.
It reminds me of TRs in a way. First you're there comfortably and confronting, and then you're outflowing, and then when you get up to TRs 3 and 4, you're selecting what you want to respond to. You're evaluating it, and you're taking responsibility for both sides of that communication cycle. So, you know, I was just sitting here listening to this, and it's like, wow, this sounds like TRs in a way.
Very good.
Yeah. Tom, have you got anything to say on this? I wanted to give you a chance for sure to talk and give your opinion on all this.
All right. Well, I could talk for a long time. Trust me on that. So give me some parameters here.
Yeah. Can you give us the summary or concise 5 minutes, maybe?
Sure.
Okay.
I have a long history of being hands-on, and I like to look at things like from a cause or a victim viewpoint, right? So I figure an OT would be at total cause, and somebody that's not even close to OT would be a victim, right? And when I handle people, it's I try to bring them up to a point where they can decide whether or not they want to be a cause or if they want to stay being the effect or being a victim, right?
Mhm.
I suppose there's a scale in there somewhere of you know, a victim or a cause. You know, LRH says, like Trey pointed out earlier, or you pointed out actually, the definition of an OT is someone who's at cause in all dynamics, right? So it's been my life, you know, working in management in the Church of Scientology, you become a victim very easily, you know, and then you have to decide, make a decision to not be a victim to get back at cause, right? So that's what the whole game was there, was to how to remain at cause and how to work your way back up to being at cause rather than being a victim. There's one of my favorite examples of this was a gal that she wasn't a Scientologist, but she had gotten one of those ports for getting, what do you call it, for cancer, you know, the medicine they give you in this port that you have. But anyhow, she finished the cycle, and then they took the port out, and she had a horrible pain from here down all the way through her arms and stuff. So this friend of mine who was an OT, she said, can you give her a touch assist and see if that'll pull her out of it? So I gave her probably 3 or 4 hours of touch assist. Nothing changed. So I had Linda do it, and nothing changed there either. She did the same amount. So then I started pulling out the assist book, and you know, nothing changed there. So I'm going, you know, I can either walk away from this or I can fix this, you know. So and of course I'm not going to walk away from it, because my experience has told me that if I do walk away from it, I'm going to get my butt kicked, you know, by myself probably, you know. So finally I said, well, I've been here before, you know, with people or PCs, and so I started pulling her withholds on the meter. And boy, she was loaded, and she had a lot of overs, a lot of withholds, especially on the second dynamic. Her and her husband never, ever talked to each other. They've been living together for 5 years without saying anything to each other, right? I go, what kind of existence is that? You know, so now I became really invested. And so I finally got done pulling her withholds. It was on a Friday, and I saw her the next Monday, and I said, how was your weekend? And she said, well, I spent the whole weekend forgiving myself. And I go, well, that's great. And then I saw her 2 weeks later, and I said, how's it going? And she goes, oh, my husband and I are going on vacation to Hawaii, and we're going to renew our vows. So I go, hey, there you go. You know, done deal. I'm done there, you know, and that was it. So being OT is that, you know, it's just like you have to get things done, and you have to get it done, you know. And that's what I learned mainly while I was working in the Sea Org, is just getting things done, because it's not necessarily the people there that were causing that, you know, the people above you and stuff like that. It's always going back to LRH and saying, what would LRH do in this situation? And then you do that, right? And you make sure it gets done. And to me, that's what OT is really all about. You know, you're out here in the world, and you're trying to solve the problems of the world out here. And you have to fight the battles, of course, that you can only win. but you have to finish the things that you start, and you have to confront things and handle things, right? And I just finished a gal recently. She had cancer, and now she doesn't. So she had, a couple of intensives, and that handled it. So, do I want to take that on? Not really, but you got to, and but it's fun. I'm having a good time. I think I'm the luckiest person in the world that I'm able to audit and help people, and have the tech to do it with. That's how I feel. So there you go.
That's great. Great responsibility. Thanks. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, Tom.
You're welcome.
That's remarkable results. Trey often says too, just like you do, I have the best job in the world. And
Absolutely.
yeah, he has the best job in the world. So it's I mean, to see results from doing any kind of auditing or controlling these cycles, it's a win. I mean, from a touch assist on up, it's affecting the world and affecting others in a great way.
Yeah, a guy across the street from me had open heart surgery, and I went through it with him, and he was freaked out about going through it. And I finally pulled on him what was causing his freaking out. And he said, well, his dad had open heart surgery, and he went to the hospital afterwards, and he was sitting there and he saw his chest open and he was only like 9 years old. So it was like a huge incident on him. And so after he got done, I just gave him body comms and touch assist. And he said later on that he never had any pain after having open heart surgery. I mean, that's just crazy to me, but
Oh,
that's
So-
the tech.
Wow. That is a tech.
That's amazing.
I've
Um,
seen, oops. Oh, yeah, I've seen OT wins just on doing a touch assist. A pain that someone had, literally the woman said, the pain, she had scoliosis. So she was having pain from the scoliosis, and her husband gave her a touch assist. And she said, that pain, it just ran up my spine and jumped off into nowhere. And she didn't have pain after that in her spine. So it felt like a very OT thing that happened, and it's just remarkable what can happen from the simplest assist. Well, listen, I think we have another little section that Trey's going to chit chat on, and then we're going to talk about some more examples. Unless there's some more examples, anybody else want to talk right now? Z.
Yeah, well, Tom, that's amazing. That's an incredible win for you as an OT and as an auditor. I just wanted to say something. You mentioned that in the Sea Org, people were expected to get things done, and I've seen that despite of our disagreements with the Church of Scientology. I loved a great deal of Sea Org members that had great purpose, that had good purpose. They just wanted to help LRH get things done. And they were so OT without being anywhere on the bridge. And I very much admired that. And what I wanted to say about that is that as an OT, once I went up the bridge, I noticed that I was able to get things done before, but now when I get things done, my case is not pushing against me every step of the way. It's less pain, less effort, things are easier. So I was thinking, yes, we can all get things done if the necessity level is high enough. Right. If we need to run out of that burning building, we will be able to do it. But, with smaller things in life, if you are OT, there is less pressure, there is much more simplicity. Things flow easier, especially on a postulate level. You put things there and it just happens. So I have so many examples of that. I could talk again all day, but I just wanted to add that to what Tom said.
Excellent.
Yeah, look, I forgot to unmute myself. That's great. Thank you, Z. Thank you, Z. Trey, are you ready for the next little section here on ARC and KRC?
Oh, well, I thought Randy was going to handle that one.
Oh, you guys want to arm wrestle for it?
No.
Okay. Whoever else would like to do that. Oh, this is one of my favorite images from forever, you guys. I had to include it. just have a look. It's adorable.
Great.
That's
It's
very
adorable
nice.
image.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, okay. I just had to throw some things in there for pretty. But this, it's been one of my favorite things for over 50 years.
Wow.
Okay, and a little bit reflective of the OT experience, I think. Okay, here we go. KRC triangle. Okay, guys, who's
I'll be glad.
talking?
I'll talk about this. Do we
Oh.
have an ARC triangle too?
We removed that yesterday.
Oh, we did.
Remember?
Okay.
We did, but
Okay.
I think everyone here kind of knows about the ARC triangle.
Not everybody.
we
We have a
could-
couple new people that I'll just define it for, but I'll be quick.
Okay, real good.
So there's a couple terms mentioned here. ARC triangle. ARC stands for affinity. And affinity, of course, means liking or love of someone or something. It's also a willingness to occupy the same space as someone. Reality, AR, the R is for reality, and that is agreement, basically, the degree of agreement between people. And for example, if we all agree that we're communicating with each other, that's a reality. And then we have communication, and communication is exchanging ideas or sending an impulse or particle across a space from one person to another. So that those three things combine into affinity, reality, and communication. And these are emphasized a lot in Scientology because it's what equals understanding, these three things together. Now, we have another triangle, and which is displayed on the screen, which is called the KRC triangle. And these consist of knowledge, responsibility, and control. Now, these are all pretty familiar terms, and there's nothing too mysterious about what's meant by each one. Knowledge, of course, is really knowing something, knowing about something. Responsibility is the willingness to be cause with something or over something, the willingness to cause something to happen or be responsible for someone or something. And control is more the mechanism of actually making something happen. We talked about getting things done, making things happen. That's where control comes into play. If for example, you're about to cross the street and you notice an old woman is about to hobble in front of the traffic, she doesn't see the cars coming. If you're being responsible, you will go over there and you will help her stay out of the street and avoid the traffic. You're putting in a little control there on the situation. Now, the KRC triangle, when you develop all three of these things, knowledge, responsibility, and control, and like it says here, little by little, one can make anything go right by increasing knowledge on all dynamics. And by dynamics, we mean the different divisions of life. Hubbard identified these as 8 different divisions. In book 1, for those of you who've read Dianetics, he talks about 4 dynamics. Later, he discovered there were 8 at least. And I won't go into detail on them, but they're different divisions of life, like the self, the family, one's group or groups that you're involved in, one's species or all mankind. And then the 5th dynamic is all living things, animal or plant. The 7th dynamic is anything spiritual, anything to do with spirits or aesthetics can also be on the 7th dynamic. And the 8th dynamic is infinity or the supreme being, which we don't really go into in terms of definition much in Scientology because Hubbard decided it's best to leave that up to the individual to come to his or her own awareness of the eighth dynamic rather than have somebody dictate to them, you must believe this, or you should bow down to so-and-so, you know. Anyway, that's a brief rundown on the dynamics. So little by little, and especially if you go through auditing and especially training in Scientology, you can increase your knowledge on all dynamics. You can increase your responsibility. And a lot of people, like I do a lot of auditing too, like Tom, and it's really gratifying to see people as they're going through auditing, they become more and more willing to be responsible for things than they were before. Like, wow, you know, I think I could actually help people. And I never really thought of helping other people much before. I think I'm starting to feel like I could help other people. Well, that's increasing responsibility. And then they begin to become more confident at getting things done. I'm getting things done more easily than ever before. That sort of feeling, that's increasing your control on all dynamics. All of these things are part of what it means to be OT. All three of these together. If we go back to the previous slide where it added up to the KRC triangle, well, this, either one of those, there, that one. All of these together increase your power and command of life. Yeah. And so that's good. That's about all I'll say about ARC and KRC for now. Other than I just want to chime in about what I feel it's like to be OT. And my life has just become much simpler since I've become OT. And that may sound somewhat odd to say, oh, your life is simpler? Yes, it is. My life is simpler. There's much less noise. There's much less counter intention. When I want to do something, I can just do it. I'm helping people all over the world with auditing and training every day. And it's relatively easy to do. Now that's because I've gained enough knowledge over the years and responsibility. I'm willing to do things and control. I'm willing to control other people in a positive direction for their benefit with their willingness. I'm able to achieve quite a bit. So I recommend to everyone that they continue on this track of increasing these factors for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mary,
Are
you're-
there, yes,
Go
don't
ahead.
worry, we're IT is trying to run my screen here, run my audio. She's a good kid. All right. Here we go. Do we have any other people who would like to give examples, you know, especially from the panel, any other examples of KRC and finding that they are more capable of getting things done as OTs? Anybody? You can raise your hand or wave at the screen if you're not comfortable doing that. Z, go for it.
Yeah, you guys are probably sick and tired of seeing me, but yeah. So KRC, oh my God, I love KRC. The KRC triangle is just such an important and major triangle. What I wanted to say when Randy was talking, I was taking some notes, is that as an OT, you gain that power, that potential, but you don't particularly have the tools. You are a freshly produced, you know, Thetan, which is feeling so wonderful, but you do need training to be able to use those abilities. Of course, auditor training, but also training for any other field that's close to your heart. And I also noticed that when you go up the bridge with myself or other OTs, you become closer to your purpose, to the purpose that you're here for, that the purpose that you have innately as a Thetan. And when you get to that point and you get your training and now you have all that potential and power as an OT, you're unstoppable. It's really true. So I feel like an OT needs to get training. The amazing auditor training, of course, where it's basically all the knowledge of life. However, also training in the sphere of your influence. If you're a parent, get as much training as possible as a parent. If you are, you know, I don't know, engineer, you know, you add more training to your field. So you do need training as an OT, I feel. That's very important to say.
Here, here.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Z. Tom, and then Trey. Okay, you each raise your hands for comments.
All right, so I have been doing a deep dive on the KRC triangle because in the church, we were always concerned about how to make OTs. I think I mentioned earlier to Mary, I had the wonderful responsibility of making OTs, and that was my statistic, number of OTs made, which was always fun. But it was always lacking because these guys were getting in trouble afterwards, you know, and what's going on there. And then finally it hit me, duh, they're not trained, you know. You got to be trained in life. You got to learn how to fix people, you know, and like Ellery says, if you don't like somebody, then audit them, right? And that's basically the truth right there. If you don't like the world as it is, then audit it. You know, we have a crazy world right now, and there's no lack of auditing or training needed out there. These people are just crazy, you know, and crazy things are happening all the time. Learn about your life. You have to study. You have to learn. You have to clear up misunderstood words and understand what's going on, you know, in order to become more and more OT. You see, because operating Thetan is a Thetan that can operate. You know, maybe you can, you know, feel better about yourself after you get some auditing, but that's not enough. You have to learn how to help other people and handle other people. You see, so that's what makes you really OT right there. You know, LRA says Thetan is as alive as he can help others, and he's as dead as he can't help others. You see, so there's no truer statement than that. So get trained. You have to get trained.
Here, here.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Trey, did you have
Yeah,
something to
something,
say to that too?
something Randy said reminded me of after my wife Nikki finished all 3 L's, some time had passed and somebody asked her, you know, what was it like afterwards? And she thought about it for a second. You know, she says, I just feel normal. And if something needs to be done, I just go ahead and do it. And I thought, wow. I mean, it sounds kind of benign in a way, like, oh, it's a lot of effort to just feel normal. But boy, there are a lot of people out there who just give anything to feel normal.
Amen.
Yes.
Right. All right. Thanks, guys. Okay, we've gotten, is there anybody else who really wanted to say anything before we go on? Okay, we have Z here who's fielded some questions and answers. She gathered them up from our IndyBridge Facebook page and from people emailing in questions. And I'm hoping maybe we can answer a few questions for people about being OT. Z, take it away.
All right. So does anyone here have any questions about life as an OT? Anything that we can handle here live before going to the questions that we had prepared? Raise your hand, unmute yourself. Mary, are they able to unmute themselves?
I do believe, yes.
Okay.
Right.
Any questions?
Yes, yes,
Or-
they can. Mhm.
Okay,
Or type them into the chat. Also an
Right.
option. Mhm.
okay. So you can raise your hand or put anything. And also, if you have any comments, if you are an OT and part of this event, if you would like to share your own wins or examples that you thought of, you can definitely let us know. So let me just take a look at the questions here. Bear with me. Okay. Mary, do we have a list of the questions that you have prepared? I'm looking here.
Oh, I sent them
Let
to
me
you
just-
yesterday.
Good. Okay, let me see. All right, so we have quite a bit of questions here.
Okay.
So one of the most interesting questions that I thought was, what's the fastest way to reach OT? So if anyone would like to say anything about that. From my perspective, it's diligence. I think when you are in the physical universe will do anything and everything to stop you reach your innate state. You are in this physical universe because you gave up your T state. So now you're deciding that you want to come out of it. You have to spend the time, you have to spend the diligence, you have to remove barriers, and you have to keep postulating that purpose, in my opinion, to become OT. And from my perspective, that was one of the fastest ways and most efficient. You will have, people throwing counter intentions, and the physical universe will throw counter intentions. And the other thing that I would suggest is do one step at a time. Just concentrate on your next step on your auditing. If it's a life repair, do your life repair. If it's the objective processing, just do that. Concentrate on that, and then take care of the next step. All right. Anyone else? Any of our technical people that would like to say anything to that question? Trey, Randy, Jerry, Mary.
I had an observation. One of the questions I remember seeing from what you gathered was, would you rather be rich or be OT? And there was a comment about it being very expensive. That might have been so in the church. But one of the ways you can get to OT pretty rapidly and consistently is have a twin and train with each other and co-audit up the grades. It's a wonderful experience. That's how I got my training at first. That's how I got as far as I did. Yeah, my considerable experience reaching class 1. I mean, but no, I've done other training too. But the way you have accountability with this other person, you make a very good friend for life, and you can really help each other progress up the bridge and encourage each other. So it's not something you do all by yourself. It's definitely involves others too. So twinning, co-auditing, being accountable. It's a good part of that.
Yeah.
That's all.
All right. So we have another question, for instance, can an OT know about past bad events by just seeing a person? Looking into a person, or probably looking into a person's space, can they foresee a bad event? Has anyone had any experience? Does anyone have a response to that?
I
do.
have an
Go
idea.
ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
Go
there's looking at the tone scale and the solidity of the person is something that I notice as I'm going on here with going up the bridge. It's easier and easier to go, oh, they're at anger, or they're at this and that. And of course, with my going up the bridge, with Randy helping me out here on the long distance auditing. I could spot easier and easier what the person is at and predict what they'll do, and then not be affected myself. I go, oh, okay, that's what's happening. And then there's other things where I start handling that they get better. Thanks.
Very good, Tony.
That's great. Jerry, did you want to say something?
That was basically what I was gonna say, that it's not so much specific thing that you can see what somebody's gonna go through, more just the fact that their tone level sort of indicates the direction which they're going, or what type of thing will probably happen with the thing that they're doing.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. And I think the person just revised the question a little bit too. The way I understand it is, if you look at a person as an OT, will you know in what types of problems they will get, or if they will give you problems? So I believe that I would just say yes in certain instances when you look at a person, and as you guys mentioned, the tone scale, you can probably foresee certain things happening. Yep.
Yes, and to add to that, there's something, and this is part of training. In the book Science of Survival, there's a chart of human evaluation that LRH made, which expands the tone scale out horizontally. And this is part of training, but you can do a lot of this yourself by reading that book and learning that chart. You can actually begin to predict other people's behavior based on where you observe them on that chart. It's very powerful. And I would recommend that. It's called the Chart of Human Evaluation. And it's in the book Science of Survival.
Perfect. Thank you, Randy. And there's one more question we could take up. And I like this question. It says, can an OT energize a person with positive energies? Do you all have anything to say about that? Tony is laughing. Do you have an example? Can you unmute yourself, Tony? Tony, can you unmute yourself, please?
No, he's not able to. Has he been
Okay.
muted?
No, he's not muted. Oh, yeah, he's muted now. There we go. Let's try this again.
So while we're figuring out the situation, I can just say a little something about that. I certainly think that that's possible, because as an OT, you have less case and you are higher on the tone scale. There is more positive energy available. So when you are around other people, you automatically lift them up and, lift them up on the tone scale, and they feel happier and less stressed and all of that. So in a way, we are Downies.
Yeah. I think I'm unmuted now, so.
Yes, we hear you.
Hey,
Yes,
okay,
yes, very
great.
good.
Yeah, so Randy has been working with me long distance here, and we're on NOTS level 6, which is the training for solo. And most wild and wonderful things have been happening with those around me. It was like 2 days ago, these people who were very hostile and antagonistic several years ago, both of them connected and were very nice, and they were themselves, because before they were on drugs and they were in this and that, and it was like really horrible to be, around these people. And all I was doing was cogniting and figuring out, which is, something blue, and then Randy, how did I call it? I think what would I call it? It was major. I just went, oh my God, this is happening. And it's because I'm doing, of course, standard Scientology, doing what I need to do, where I'm at, so on, good stuff. And yeah, that's most amazing because they were really hostile. And all of a sudden, I read this bulletin, and then they called, and they're the nicest people in the world.
Yes, and that was very good. And if I'm not mistaken, Tony, you were studying a bulletin by L. Ron Hubbard about the technology and about how different people behave and so forth, and something about your understanding that piece of the technology brought this whole thing about. Just your understanding and cogniting on it was enough to actually affect somebody else at a distance to the degree that they suddenly became friendly to you. Isn't that about right?
That's right, yes. And we're avoiding about 4, 5, or 6 Scientology terms for the new people, so we don't get into, yeah.
Yes.
But that's the essence of it. I'm just amazed. I mean, what can you say? It's just walking on air.
Yes. Very good.
Nice. Thank you so much, Tony.
Okay.
Kit is raising her hand, or his hand.
His
Yeah.
hand, yes.
Okay, so these all questions were from me, and the reason being I have been facing these things from many years. Maybe the last one I remember was 2003, and I actually visualized that my father is going to die in few hours, and he actually died. So my question is like, why these things happen with me? And it has been happening since 2003.
I think, Ankit, I hope you had the experience that we are, spiritual beings. We're not our bodies. And as spiritual beings, we have perceptions. And probably is your question also in relation to OT? I would say for me personally, as an OT, those perceptions have increased. I foresee things way more than before OT, but even as non-OT, I was able to perceive things because I'm a Thetan. I was always a Thetan. So as a spiritual person, as a spiritual being, I have had experience or awareness and perception. So yes, we are able to perceive things even without being an OT on the gray chart, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful. And another question that there was is somebody was saying, and if you are more than welcome to raise your hand if you realize or recognize your question and talk about it yourself. But the way I understood it is that this person is not on the OT levels, but has experienced being exterior as a person and felt good about it. And she was asking if OTs are always exterior or in an exterior state. Is that something any one of you would like to talk about? Trey, Randy, Mary?
I will talk about that a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. My experience in auditing lots of people and training lots of people and bringing up people up through the OT levels is exteriorization is basically, it's the act of the person becoming aware that they are not their body and that they're able to be in a position in space subject to their own consideration. Now, this can vary a lot. When you first hear about going exterior, you hear about, well, the person must be on the other side of the room or else they're not exterior. Well, that's not necessarily true. It can be that way, but sometimes it's a matter of degree. For example, in my very first auditing session, I was very fortunate to experience a degree of exteriorization where I was the PC, I was being audited, and in the middle of the session, with my eyes closed, I was tipped over to the right 90 degrees as a being, even though my body was still sitting upright. So I told my auditor this. I said, you know what? I'm tipped over 90 degrees to the right as a being, and it feels really good. And my auditor wisely said, very good. Your needle is floating. We'll be ending off there today. Because it's not a good idea to audit somebody past going exterior. Anyway, so that was my first experience in auditing of being aware that I was not my body. And I think essentially that is the awareness. Now, Ron talks about this in several places about how this will develop. At first, we've been used to using bodies for perceptions for so long, for so many lifetimes. We become used to, well, I can't see unless I use my eyes, or I can't hear unless I use my ears. I can't feel anything unless I use my skin. We become dependent on bodies as thetans for perceptions. When you start to go exterior, you start to become aware of yourself as a spiritual being. You start to realize, I can perceive things directly. I don't need my body to perceive things. Wow. Now, at first, it may be a little bit blurry, maybe a little fuzzy, a little indistinct while you're getting aware of this. But that's what some of the original OT levels actually give you exercises in. And some of you guys attending have done these, I know, where their LRH actually developed certain drills. After you've handled some major parts of your case, you're clear and you've gotten rid of some major other obstacles, you're able to actually do these drills where you go exterior, you go out and you see what you can do. And he gives you challenges like, can you do this? See if you can do that. See if you can communicate with another person at a distance. Try it out, see what you can do, you know? And so there is a great deal you can learn about this, but it's on a gradient scale, little by little, and it happens naturally as you go up the levels of the grade chart.
Great. Thank you so much, Randy.
Sure.
All right. How are you looking? How is it looking as far as time, Mary? You like unmute yourself?
If people are willing to stay around, we're at 1:15 Central Time, so it's almost 15 minutes after the hour. If you are if you have a win, please stay around. We'd love to hear it. Let's see, did we have anyone else who wanted to say anything or ask a question before we go to wins?
If there are no more questions here, I just wanted to wait and see if there are any other questions. There was one more question I was going to throw in. However, I wanted to wait.
I think Tom might have had a question or a comment.
And Trey has.
Oh, and
something.
Trey. Okay.
Okay.
And okay.
Mahar has a question.
Maher, good. Maher. You have to unmute yourself, Maher. We can't hear you. Oh, he's writing it down. He's putting it in the chat.
Okay. So
Okay.
meanwhile, Mr. Tom, did you want to say
Okay, well,
something?
I just wanted to say, when Z asked that question, do OT spend when they're, what was the question again?
Are they exterior all the time? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had a cognition. I just went, well, I probably am. I just don't pay attention to it,
It's
Yeah.
the new normal. It's the new
Exactly.
normal, you know, it's like,
That's
Yeah,
oh,
exactly
it is a
yeah.
new normal. That's exactly right, Mary. It's
Yes.
the-
Yeah.
You know, and I suppose there's times, you know, when I'm not very exterior, you know, it's like, you know, when somebody's having a problem, you know, I don't go exterior, you know, when I'm listening to them, you know. So I don't know. I just think I am most of the time.
Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
yeah.
Here, here.
If,
Yeah.
if I'm ill, I tend to be very introverted.
Yes.
You know, it's
Yeah.
the body's going, hey, handle this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Physical
all right.
universe pulling you in. Exactly.
Yep. But most of the time, yeah, I kind of ride a little bit outside myself,
Yeah.
outside the mess, yes.
And so the question that I was going to ask and pose here, that was one of the questions that we had, is the importance of this lifetime pursuing being OT or pursuing wealth and riches. Is it worth for us OTs who have gone OT? Would we do it again? Would we go OT as opposed to pursuing wealth and material gains? What are your 2 cents on that? Yeah, Brandy?
Oh, I would say overwhelmingly, it's much more important that I have gone OT this lifetime. I've been many lifetimes where I've pursued wealth. I've got to be the richest guy, blah, 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 blah. But wealth, of course, does not equal happiness.
Yeah.
Now you can have both. It's possible to be OT and gain that knowledge, responsibility, and control. And you suddenly find that, you know, making money is not as hard as it used to be either, you know, especially if you're doing something that is very fulfilling, very rewarding. You enjoy doing it. You achieve a certain amount of competence. When you demonstrate your competence at something, people are willing to pay you for it,
Yes.
you know? So and that's my answer to that.
Yeah, that's very true. And I would say both. It's great. Yes, as an OT, I was able to have a more successful business and produce more wealth compared to not being OT. But if I had the choice, I would 100% say OT, because I can take OT with me to my next lifetimes. I can take those abilities, but I can't take my wealth with me. So
Yeah, good point.
definitely the pursuit of OT. Anyway,
Yeah.
anyone else that wanted to say anything to this last
Yeah,
question?
I think the old saying that the money can't buy happiness is true, except if you don't have any money, how would you ever know that? So I think, you know, if you're to make money your only priority is a big mistake, because your ability to make money is far senior than your actual havingness of money. And it brings up the question too of how much is enough. You know, you can spend a lot of time accumulating things way beyond your personal needs, or you can sort of bring a balance into your life where you're applying the affluence attainment formula: hard work, in ethics, doing things that were successful, applying the condition you're in. The application of that formula brings about wealth, and is proven by the fact that, you know, lots of people become millionaires who aren't that sane, really, and aren't that aware, but they're aware of how to do that, so they can do it. And so you have to really function on parallel tracks there. The track of securing your survival physically, and you're securing your survival spiritually.
Yeah, very true. Thank you, Trey. And Mr. Tom?
Yeah, I think going OT is a necessity, and the money comes after that. You know what I mean? If you decide to go OT and you start working on it, well, then you're going to need money to do it. So, you know, you don't have to go crazy and make millions of dollars before you go OT, but, you know, it comes along with it. Trust me on that, because I was always, when I was younger, I was always broke, especially after being on staff in Detroit for a while. I was kind of broke, but I I decided to go OT, and it happened. It was kind of weird the way it happened, but it all just fell into place, and it was kind of cool. And then the money started coming after that, and there you go. So
Awesome. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you so much. And Mary, we have a question in the chat. Would you like to read it out loud? Or would you like me to?
Okay, oh, why don't you do it, Z? Yeah,
Okay, so
can you see it? Can you see
yeah,
it?
from Mr. Maher, as an OT, did you recall events of past lives? If so, doesn't it diminish the importance of trivial things in this life and make you remember your larger purposes and past mental considerations? I have read about in-between life implants by LRH. As an OT, how more can you be confident in retaining your knowledge and memory for the future lives? So I have a few answers to that, but anyone else that would like to say anything about that?
Go ahead, Z, take it away.
Okay, so yes, I believe the first part of the question we just talked about, that in my eyes personally, and I don't know how anyone else thinks, I am more cause over mess and material things, these trivial things. I can pull them into my life easier, but they are more trivial to me compared to what I've gained as an OT. And I would, if I had the choice, I would always go for the spiritual gain. But as Trey also mentioned, you in this lifetime, and unfortunately in this universe, you need, they have to kind of go hand in hand. If you want to go up the bridge, and you don't want to do it all in co-auditing, you need some funds for it. And as far as implants, if anyone has questions on that, there is definitions in the L. Ron Hubbard's technical dictionary as far as that's concerned. And yes, I haven't died yet to know how it's gonna be my next lifetime, but so I haven't gone and come back, but I have a good feeling that I will be less inclined in going into implants this next lifetime with what I've gained. So I think as an OT, I will be able to go around those traps.
Yeah, there are tapes where Elleridge talks about between lives implants, and he talks about how to avoid them. So part of it is just hatting and training. I had a couple PCs that were interested in this, so I read I listened to, read the tapes about between lives, looked up the data, and I developed a little program of auditing that would run out past charge on the subject and restore freedom of choice of what to do after, after you leave this particular body. Elleridge says the best thing to do is go someplace safe, just hang around there for a while until you can clearly see what to do. Don't report back to anybody. Don't, go towards the light, which is just the beam that will beam you back up into the between lives area. So anyway, it's actually doable, and it's possible to get rid of the charge that you've had on past between lives, because Elleridge says that often you don't go through the between lives implant again. What happens is when you die, it gets re-stimulated and goes into action. So getting rid of the past efforts to implant you with these ideas or can be run out, and then you're a lot freer to make a new choice and a new decision.
Yes.
And
yeah,
this
that's
could
just
be
on original OT4. The EP of original OT4 is never being trapped again.
Yes.
That's fantastic. That could be probably a talk for a whole other event. It could be a little bit of a controversial subject, because I think other religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs do believe in going into the light. They actually recommend for you to go into the light to
Unfortunately,
meet your loved ones and follow the love and the light, which is, from our perspective, a trap. You don't want to do that. But again, that could be a subject for a future event.
Correct.
Mahar, I hope that answers your question. All right.
I had a quick comment or a thought on past lives. The only reason that these are even remotely important, like yesterday, last year, the year before, that's all in our past too, right? The only reason we really backtrack to that is to find an event that has affected us so badly that we made decisions about it and that we try to manage with those decisions today. This is classic, Dianetics, right? Once that's handled, I think Randy said the charge or the upset is examined and handled, no matter how far back on the track, that it ceases to affect you. You just go, oh, okay, that happened. All right, I did that. Someone did that to me. Okay. And it becomes less fascinating and less of importance. And you really do have more attention in the present as a result of letting go of all the upset of any past event that's had a hold on you.
That's
Did I
right.
make
there-
sense?
Yes,
Did I
and,
make sense? Okay.
and that's the
Thank you so
beauty.
much. Go
And that's
ahead.
the beauty of how LRH put the auditing program together, so that the basic actions of auditing that auditors trained on, and the basic levels of the grade chart, which we have displayed at indiebridge.org. It's just, I just constantly marvel at how genius he was at putting together in levels where you can address all these necessary things step by step, including past lives and so forth, so that you can handle everything that needs to be handled on your road to OT.
Thank you so much, Randy. And back to you, Mary. I believe next step was when you had mentioned.
Yes, I think it's about time to wrap it up with some really good wins. Let me go to our next slide here and see what we got. Oh, this is a slide I put in. I just want to say this on my own behalf. ROT's happy all the time. And a lot of us just search for happiness. I want to be happy. Happiness itself is not an emotion. It's a word which states a condition. And the anatomy of that condition is interest. Happiness, you could say, is the overcoming of not unknowable obstacles toward a known goal. In other words, get her done, right? Get it done. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I just thought I'd leave that in there for my own sake, because I can do that. Okay. Here we go. Here's our contact info, indiebridge.org. IndieBridge, that's our website. info@indiebridge.org is our email, and IndieBridge on Facebook. Just request an ad or from us on Facebook. Just message us directly and we'll be happy to add you and invite you. And now, how about some wins?